Glenn Fleishman on keeping safe using mobile tech. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by Notion AI, the one tool that does it all. Try Notion AI for free at notion.com/MacVoices. So where do we go from here? I'm seeing on my screen, take control of securing your Apple devices, keep safe using mobile tech. There's so many things here. What do you want to talk about that you think we should know about?
Oh, I'd love to talk about both those. Let's start, if you don't mind, with keep safe using mobile tech is the title. Joe Kistel and I spent so much time honing the name. I swear it was more than writing the book, because it's hard. What I wanted to convey was I was working on some. When Apple released some new feature, maybe early this year or something, and it struck me. Holy cow! Apple now has a whole portfolio of safety features that are about our personal, often physical security and safety. And you and I are gentlemen of a certain age, so we probably both know a lot of people who that age, undisclosed age, who have heart issues. Where I'm thinking of Chuck Letourneau, for example, whose lives were saved because they wore an Apple Watch. I mean, almost certainly, Chuck, I can't remember what it was. I think he was going up a flight of stairs. He was perfect health, and his watch said, "There's something really screwy going on." He goes to see a doctor, and it's like, yeah, it's. He wrote about this, was it Mac Observer? And anyway, so you just keep coming across stories like that with like the Apple Watch. And then there's the check-in feature that I feel like Apple built a great feature and a lot of people don't know about. There's the safety check feature for trying to reduce domestic partner violence. All of these things that have to do with you're in an accident, someone's trying to harm you, or it's a way for you to have a better sense of physical or device security. So we repackage things that came from, there's new material, obviously, lots of new material. And Google has also interestingly made a lot of strides, I would say, in the last year and a half with improvements about physical security and safety as well. So the book is actually my first book in a long time that is fully Android and Apple compatible, because there are features that Android has that Apple don't, that I hope Apple catches up on. Android needs to catch up on a lot of Apple features, but I think they're all they're great. And like things like car crash detection, for instance, which is sounds straightforward, and both platforms support it, but making sure you've configured it exactly the way you want it, or understanding what will happen if you are in a crash, I feel like are both kind of not unknowns, but you really have to go in and dig into documentation and read pages. And so to get some answers for the book, where it's literally like a bullet point, I had to read a bunch of different things, like sometimes press releases, support documents, security documents, to figure out, well, what's going to happen if I don't hit the button and I've configured this and I've got, my watch is away from my phone. Or suddenly I've got a Google Wear watch and I've got an Android phone, but are they compatible? So will the watch try to call, all these things, I think are confusing enough for powerful features. So anyhow, that's what's prompted the book, is trying to put together in one place all the things that could affect your mental health, your physical health, and your physical safety. And so I don't know if people like the book. I hope so. It sold a few copies, but I feel like it's kind of a new comprehensive area in technology. It's the promise that technology was going to give us. It was going to improve our lives. And sometimes you feel like, did TikTok or Twitter or Facebook improve our lives? Did email improve the lives of everyone because people are drowning in it all the time? But something like, every time you hear about someone whose life was saved because the watch told them to go see a doctor because of their heart, or someone trapped in a ravine, or emergency SOS via satellite is just what was happening in North Carolina. There's so many stories of people able to use that feature. And then the new one that came out in iOS 18, the just regular messaging via satellite, where you didn't have to call emergency services. That is a tremendous help for people unable to have any other means of telecommunication, which those people, the folks in Asheville and all around there, I don't think ever would have thought, well, we're going to be totally cut off from the outside world. We won't have phone lines. We won't have internet. We won't have cell. And suddenly you have a tool in your hand that helps you tell people far away what's going on. I think that's amazing.
I think you're you're really onto something here. That this is an important book because there are all those capabilities, and because there's so many options to them, it's difficult to know what each option is. I mean, you almost need probably a paragraph per option to understand
Oh
it.
my gosh.
And how do you do that on a watch or on the phone? In the settings. I mean, nobody's going to stop and read it. They're just going to say, "Oh, the defaults are fine." I've
Yeah.
told this story on the show before, and I won't do it in detail. But my girlfriend took a bad fall, and her watch
Oh.
not only alerted me and her sister, but also called emergency services.
Oh my gosh.
And
So great.
so it it works. I mean, that was the thing because I just talked to her, and she, it's like I got a notice because I'm one of her emergency contacts, and it's like, no, she didn't take a fall. I just talked to her. Well, that's how fast it happens.
So that's what an accident is, right? Is you don't know when it's coming, but you can prepare
Exactly.
for it.
Exactly. And you've got devices. I mean, I hate to be kind of crass about it, but you've paid for the devices. Why not invest just a little bit of time to learn just a little bit more and get even more out of them and hope you never need it?
Yeah, I think that's that balance between a feature like that, which is configured by default. So your girlfriend probably, I don't know if she was aware that the feature even existed. Clearly, she, with you in the picture, I'm sure she was, but I'm sure you told her. But it's like the fact that it just did the thing, and you don't have to intervene to do it. And clearly she set up her emergency contacts, which I keep writing articles and telling people to do because Apple's kind of making emergency contacts almost the hub of your it's a hub in your phone, right? It's kind of the people most important to you, but it's also how Apple unlocks certain services and access. But the check-in to me is one of, I think, the most useful, most neglected features. Have you ever used check-in, or do you know anybody who's ever mentioned to you that they've used check-in?
I'm embarrassed because I don't know what check-in is.
See, this is the thing. I was so excited when it came out, and I've written actually a bunch of articles about it. I feel like it's a gem. It's to like not to be alarmist, but what it is, it's like an anti-kidnapping feature, sort of. Not exactly. Like it's not like lockdown mode, which is government is after me, right? Or a criminal organization is after me. I mean, lockdown mode is really it's only meant for a relatively small number of people, or a contact key verification in messages, which is like an extra level of cryptographic protection for messaging, really only applies to a few people. Anyone can turn it on. There's no penalty for turning it on, but it's kind of only some people are at risk of having their messages hijacked in that way, and they're high level human rights advocates in repressive countries, right? But check-in is a feature that I think everyone might have a reason to use at a different time. So for instance, let's say your girlfriend was going off the grid, like she was walking in an area with bad cell service. The check-in feature is in messages, which is a weird place to start. You tap the plus sign on iOS and on your iPhone, and the plus sign in a conversation. You choose check-in, and then you can say, "I'm going to this location," and you can say which way, like by foot, transit, or car, or I want to set a timer, and then you send it to what I call like a safety partner. So your girlfriend texts you a message and it says, there's a timer in 1 hour. If she doesn't check in an hour, like her phone will bleep at her. And if she doesn't check in, it'll contact you separately and say, "Hey," and depending on her settings, it'll share her location. It'll give additional actions. It doesn't call emergency services, but it provides a sort of the safety partner with information that then could be used to help find somebody. So like, you're taking it like Uber added this a while ago after they had some incidents with drivers literally kidnapping people or taking them to places that they shouldn't have taken them to, or harassment or whatever. And in Uber, you can tap, and I think Lyft has this as well. Some other apps have this. You tap a thing that says follow along or whatever, and you send it to one or more people, and that person can see your route live. Well, check-in doesn't show a live route. It's more like did this person get where they're going on the right time? And if you give a destination, if you aren't moving towards a destination, you're going a different direction, you're heavily delayed, your phone will say, "Hey, are you really still on track?" And if you don't respond, it'll contact your safety partner, and so forth. So it's kind of a like, did you get home okay? Like I could see parents using this, like, just let me know you got back to your dorm okay. And then the person doesn't have to do anything. All they have to do is send a safety check or a check-in. And when they get back, the check-in ends and it's all cool. But somebody would be alerted it's interesting because one of them, and I have to tell you, I've forgotten which one. There's a timer and a destination feature. One of them is negative knowledge. It tells you if the person uh, didn't arrive. The other is positive knowledge. It tells you if the timer went off and they turned it off, like they got the timer message. I think is the thing. But it's confusing. This is part of what I document. I can't even remember it off the top of my head because you'd think they would both be the same thing. They would both tell you the event is over and the person is fine. But in fact, one only tells you if there's a problem. One tells you if there's not a problem, which I find confusing.
Today's Mac Voices is supported by Notion AI, the one tool that does it all. Try Notion AI for free at notion.com/MacVoices. So you keep hearing about using AI in your workflows, but you haven't made the leap yet? Maybe it's because you don't know where to start. Let me tell you where to start. Notion is where you should start. The new Notion AI is a single AI tool that does it all. Search across Notion and other apps, generate documents in your own style, analyze PDFs and images, and chat with you about anything. Sound a little too good to be true? Notion has always been a perfect place to organize your tasks, track your habits, write up whatever you need to write up, and collaborate with your team. The new Notion AI takes that to a new level because it's connected to multiple knowledge sources like GPT-4 and Claude. So it knows a lot about a lot of things. That means you know a lot about a lot of things. What else do you need to know? You need to know that you can try Notion for free when you go to notion.com/MacVoices. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/MacVoices, to try the powerful, easy-to-use Notion AI today. And when you use my link, you're supporting Mac Voices. Notion.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Notion for supporting Mac Voices. Yeah, I mean, I can see uses for both sides, but you're right. It is one sounds a little more passive, the other one sounds a little more active. But I can't believe that I've never heard of check-in, and that I feel like I'm pretty well versed in things and try to keep up with all the news and features and articles, and I did not know about check-in.
It came out in iOS 17, and I feel like Apple mentioned it in press coverage, and you could find it as like a feature item. But I feel like it almost, when they released their emergency SOS via satellite feature with, was that the iPhone 14 launch? I think you did a Pro for that. No, it was any iPhone 14 model, right? You could do it. And, I think that's right. It's, some features require, I get confused because there's some features you need an iPhone 14 Pro or later, all the Apple Intelligence, but satellite is any iPhone 14 model or later, except the third generation SE, which came out before the iPhone 14. You have to always put the footnotes in, right? So when they released check-in, they didn't do the same kind of safety promotion they did when they released the SOS via satellite feature, where they had that like beautiful ad with people, like someone sitting next to a burning plane, someone next to a car, someone lost in the wilderness. And they were sort of selling, I thought, a little fear and comfort. Like, hey, if something this bad happens, you've got your iPhone and you can communicate about it. I wonder if, despite the full-fledged nature of the feature and how well it's developed, I wonder if they couldn't come up with a marketing message that didn't say you could be kidnapped or mugged or, beaten unconscious or fall into a ravine, and your phone wouldn't notice that or fall over without it triggering your watch or your phone as a fall detection, and no one would know. Like, that's a really hard. Like, imagine selling that message. It's hard.
Well, and I know I recall this, but I don't remember exactly when, that there were accusations that Apple was using fear to sell their devices.
Right.
And, that got a bit of a backlash, which you're right. How do you communicate that these are safety devices unless you advertise the fact that bad things happen to people?
Right. Well, look at stolen device protection. I think is a great example of that. Is it took the Wall Street Journal banging a drum. I mean, doing great reporting. Joanna Stern and I'm forgotten the Noyan. I've forgotten her name. She's great. The two terrific reporters over there, they banged the drum on this for like a year with multiple articles, and kind of uncovered something, made Apple really squirm, and people were asking executives about it, and they were kind of like, oh, we're thinking about it. And it was an interesting case. And Apple, you can't quite figure out how many people were affected by this problem where someone could obtain your passcode either through shoulder surfing, which is the nice version, or through drugs or violence. Right, there are people who are being literally drugged and had been coerced to getting their pin out for their phone, and then their Apple ID could be reset and so forth. The loophole, in case people don't remember this, was that, and remains without this feature enabled, is that you can, if you have the passcode for an Apple device, you can reset your Apple ID password with just the passcode or macOS password. And I don't think I even quite realized how risky that is, because you assume the passcode is inviolate. Like, someone's not going to get my iPhone password, right? They'd have to beat it out of me. Well, some people were beating it out of people. And so we don't know, did that happen 100 times, or, it certainly didn't happen 10,000 times. I feel like if it was happening on that scale, we would really know about it, because there'd be stories in every community. But the Wall Street Journal reporters found a significant number of people, clearly dozens of people, that they spoke to or had stories about through police departments and direct contact, and were able to confirm. So Apple, at one level, is like, this is a very small problem. It's affecting 0.00001% of our users, I have to think they thought. But on the other hand, everyone is at risk if you're ever in a public place where someone could, the typical trick, I think Joanna Stern wrote this one, is that, it's Nicole Wing is her name. I'm sorry. It's Joanna Stern, and Nicole Wing is the other author. So Joanna had written something like, imagine you're at a bar and someone offers to take a picture of you, and you hand them your phone and they hold it up. And while they're doing it, they actually press the buttons to reset your passcode, right? So that your it forces a passcode. You can do that by holding down the two buttons, then canceling. There's all these things you can do. They hand it back to you, and then Stern pointed out that someone could be across the room with an iPhone camera. The 4K resolution is high enough. If they could get over your shoulder, like even 40 feet away, they could watch what you type in. And then they steal your phone. A Confederate standing nearby grabs your phone at that point. Then they've got your passcode. And again, I don't know how often it happens, but it's like, oh, well, that could happen to anybody. You could get conned into it, or you just, oh, my phone, I had a mask on or sunglasses, I have to enter my passcode again, in any of those scenarios. So stolen device protection, I think, falls into that, like a fear-mongering thing. I don't think Apple wanted to say, we should put a way to lock all your special stuff, like your Apple ID resets and all kinds of things, using Apple Pay for an hour. Even if you have the passcode, you have to have your Face ID or Touch ID, and you have to wait an hour. Like, it's a lockout system, and it's really hard to sell that as a feature, because it's a response to a brutal reality that's affecting a small number of people, but as high. Low potential, but high, or it's very, very low risk, but very, very high potential. You and I could go to the supermarket today; it could happen to us. It's just really unlikely.
Yeah, and to your point, if they get access to it, then they have access to all your Apple Pay capabilities, and
right,
along with all the other things, photos and everything that's in Keychain, or now passwords. Yeah, so
they point out the writers, the Wall Street Journal writers pointed out that, and I didn't even think about this. It made me rethink this entirely. Tons of people take a picture of their driver's license, and it's just in iCloud Photos, right? Because you took it for some reason, you need to shoot it, you had to upload it somewhere, whatever. So people have passport photos, credit card photos, driver's license photos, identity documents, birth certificates, and they're like, people would literally, you'd have thieves who would break in, or get your phone, and then they'd lock you out of your phone, lock you out of your Apple ID, and then just be looking for these documents and use those for identity theft. So not only are they trying to drain your bank accounts, but they're also trying to masquerade as you, because they have documents that have enough identification information that they can. It's it's a crazy world. But again, like anybody listening, are you at risk? It's probably, the odds are it'd be a million years before this could ever happen to you, if it happened then. But if it happens to you, you want something to protect. So this feature is a weird lockout. Like, I think it's a great thing that Apple added, because there's no other way to prevent this from happening to you. Just by having this 1 hour lockout. But there is an interesting thing, Chuck, is that it's the first thing that I believe Apple's ever done where it deprecates a passcode for biometric ID. So after an hour, if you want to use a feature that's covered by stolen device protection, you have to use Face ID or Touch ID as one of the things. You can't just then enter your code again, because the assumption is someone has your passcode, but they may not have you. Now, the bad part is, in some cases, some people do have them. They've kidnapped somebody, or they've, there's reports like that. But that is an even smaller percentage of people, fortunately. And that's almost infinitesimal number of people that's happened to.
And your point, if you are one of those people that someone wants it that bad, they're probably going to find a way to get you one way or another. Yeah. And that's a harsh reality. Yeah.
It's true. I also think, well, it can happen randomly, but I think it's just, you get mugged at a bar kind of thing, or after leaving a bar. But I think this is kind of like when Apple added activation lock. They did it because the police in like every city in the world were like, iPhones are being stolen a ridiculous amount of times, and people just erase them and sell them. And I think there was some potential regulation coming to cover it. And so both Google and Apple introduced something like activation lock. And that apparently immediately dropped iPhone thefts by an enormous percentage, because thieves knew they couldn't just grab it and then sell it. They'd have to go someplace where, they have to take it to a fence who had more sophisticated equipment. There are still ways to bypass it, but I think they require expensive equipment or certain kinds of technological know-how. So how do you prevent this kind of mugging to get a passcode? You introduce a feature that no thief knows is turned on or not, and then the risks to them of being caught may then outweigh the advantage of trying to, commit acts of violence. So like, well, I'm not going to mug for an iPhone because I know I might not have any value out of it, and I've wasted my time and potentially could go to jail just for that. So I'm not sure that thieves have exactly that internal math about risk. But
I think that they have gotten some of that, because enough of them tried it, and the word has gotten out that if you steal somebody's iPhone, you just, first of all, you aren't going to be able to get anything out of it or off of it. You're not going to be able to get anything for it. And worse, it may be tracking you. So,
all those features that Apple had, now that even your iPhone is off, it's not really off. It's still transmitting your location via Find My, which is great. So like, I feel like Apple has this kind of cascade of things now where if someone steals your phone, there's now a series of things that can and can't happen that make it less and less valuable to them. And you're right. The thefts wouldn't have gone down if thieves weren't aware that it had become less valuable for them to steal the device. So let's hope they keep up with features like that. Even if everyone doesn't enable it, it's still, let's hope they keep up adding features that deter people from attempting that kind of crime.
And for all you thieves out there who are listening to this interview, you'll know now that you should not steal iPhones.
Stealing is bad, but stealing iPhones is worse.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move on, because we're just going to get ourselves in trouble if we go too far down that road.
No, we don't endorse stuff. Don't worry.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.